Break's over, people!
Ever since I played this game for the first time back when I was a teenager, Brütal Legend still holds a special place in my heart today. I love the world in this game, I always enjoy the story despite how short the game is, and the characters can be very likable.
Don't worry, this won't take too long. I know how to handle petty labor disputes.
Well, most of them. It's a game that feels very creative and unique and stood out from other games at the time, which is what I usually expect from someone like Tim Schafer. I also enjoy the art style. It really screams mid to late 2000s and not too far off from Psychonauts, which came out about 4 years before Brütal Legend, and the graphics, I would say, are still pretty good for Xbox 360 and PS3 standards. The game is cartoony enough not to be taken too seriously, while at the same time capturing the world, environment, and even the characters pretty well. Like, look at this whole world. As I said before, the theme of the game revolves around heavy metal, and the aesthetic and atmosphere of this whole world just screams heavy metal. You've got guitar-shaped statues, a lot of devil horn-themed landmarks, and other heavy metal-themed environments. Hell, even the wildlife has heavy metal-themed aesthetics to them. Some of them even just have badass looks and metal body parts. And the different regions that you go to throughout the game have different aesthetics and atmospheres that befit the area, such as the Sea of Black Tears, the forest, and even the misty areas where the Drowning Doom reside. To put it simply, the environments feel like you're in the dimension of an album cover. Again, this game came out in 2009. That was the year we got games like Dragon Age Origins, Batman Arkham Asylum, Halo 3 ODST, Infamous, Borderlands, Uncharted 2, and Assassin's Creed 2. Compared to those games and more that came out in 2009, Brütal Legend drastically stood out from the rest in more ways than one, which I will cover throughout the video. The character models themselves are pretty unique. While most of the human characters in the game are what you'd expect them to look like, well, aside from Eddie, I mean, have you seen how huge this dude's hands are? Jesus. There's also various characters in the game with unique designs, from the Headbangers to the Drowning Doom troops, and even the various demons of the Tainted Coil that all blend in with the game's world. Speaking of the characters, so many of the characters in the game are very likable. You feel very invested with these characters due to their varying personalities and even their voice direction. Every time any of them come on screen, no matter who it is, these are characters that I feel an attachment to, even to those who have misguided flaws like Lita. Even some of the minor characters just have charm to them as well and just add more to the game's humor. Just watch this instance where the bouncers first join Ironhead.
What are those guys doing here?
They want to help out. They feel bad.
Okay, but I can't be holding their hands the whole time. Get it? Because their hands are too big. Okay, you guys want to help out? Alright then, can you do this? Great! Now over here. I'll be right back.
I'm helping!
I can't help but smile whenever I see these characters talk or interact. It's also one of the games where I kind of feel emotionally invested in with some of its characters. During my first playthrough at the end of the first act when Lars died and Ophelia was cast out, I felt a sense of emptiness because two characters who I really liked were written out of the story. Well, Ophelia, or at least a manifestation of her, turned into a villain throughout the rest of the story, while Lars is just dead. And it's not just the characters and their personalities that I absolutely love, but the voice acting as well. This game probably has some of the best voice cast selection you can think of. You of course have the ensemble I already mentioned, like Jack Black, who always loves to have fun and invest into every role he plays. Jennifer Hale, who, come on, it's Jennifer Hale, what role hasn't she done that was so great? Catherine Suchi, who to my surprise was also the voice of Phil and Lil from Rugrats. Lita in her first introduction came across as very stuck-up and unlikable, but later in the second half of the game after Lars's death, she got some character development and becomes far more mellowed out and mature, making her a more down-to-earth and stronger character. Zach Hanks, who I'm not too familiar with aside from his roles as the Pendleton twins from Dishonored and Godot from Final Fantasy XIII, displayed a very confident and inspiring character in Lars, which makes it a shame that they killed off his character, and so early in the story too. too. And rock stars like Rob Halford and even Lemmy Kilmister did an amazing job projecting themselves into the game. Practically everyone in the game has done a fantastic job with the voice direction and personalities for their characters. We even got performances from Richard Horvitz, who voices the guitarist from Cabbage Boy at the beginning. Lita Ford really brought out the character of Rima, and her voice really fits her. She did such a fantastic performance, and I kinda wish she had more screen time. It would also be a sin not to mention Tim Curry's performance as Diviculus. This man never fails at making a demonic villain sound so intimidating and badass, and I always loved it whenever he came on screen.
Enough! Socoria? You know, I'm glad now that your mother refused my advances all those years ago. Because at least I know you're not my son. There aren't many who can say that. Do not dare to speak to me, you insect! Who do you think you are? No, we may finally crush this Black Tear rebellion forever. Starting like we did the last time. By tearing out its heart.
Every time I hear this dude speak, I immediately think of Curry as the Lord of Darkness from Legend.
Ridiculous.
It was Socoria. I can smell her blood. The season of pain is upon us.
We are all animals, my lady. Most are too afraid to see it.
And of course, we can't forget Ozzy Osbourne as the Guardian of Metal. Such a fitting character for the man and perhaps one of the best characters in the game. Sometimes I like to visit the Motor Forge just to see his different intros.
The Guardian of Metal welcomes you. The Guardian of Metal welcomes you again. You have interrupted the Guardian of Metal's nap. The Guardian of Metal's getting a little bit tired of all this. You're still alive. You look fucking terrible. What is it?
I've been a big fan of Ozzy and Black Sabbath since my teenage years thanks to my dad, and even though Ozzy is no longer with us, he will forever be immortalized not just through his music, but as this character as well.
Go fucking crazy!
For you, Ozzy, anything. I think it was a really cool idea to not only get the voices of well-known voice actors and film actors in, but also music artists. It just fits. And you can tell that they weren't even trying to act. They weren't trying to be someone else for the sake of the character. They were just being themselves. They were just having fun and putting themselves in the game, and that is just awesome to think about. Now, the world of Brütal Legend itself is a wide open area with different regions for you to travel in throughout the game. Whether on foot or in the Druid Plow, you are granted an endless span of land to travel throughout, providing all sorts of aesthetics in addition to having many things to do in each area. As you play through the game's story, you'll have access to more areas open to side activities such as side quests, collectibles, and more. Whenever a new story mission is available, or if you want to find a secondary mission, you can mark it on your map via a waypoint, and with a large beam of light from a giant stage light descending from the heavens, which according to the game's lore is provided by the Titans. You can start a new story mission at any time you want after each one, or you can focus on exploring and also do secondary missions in between. There's ongoing ones throughout the game, such as ambush missions, where you and a random Ironhead patrol ambush oncoming enemies and have to defeat them before they kill your entire team. I'm just gonna say right now, there were too many of these missions and it got really repetitive over time. I feel like we could have done with a lot less of these. Some secondary missions will also reward you with a unique items, such as the ones where you have to compete against a hunter voiced by and modeled after Brian Posehn and beat his record for each species of wildlife you find in the world. These missions can be done at any time during the game, and completing all of them will reward you the Steel Quilled Axe, which will cause enemies killed by it to explode and damage surrounding enemies. I'll be honest, it's one of my least favorite missions, but it's worth doing just to get the axe. And no open world game where you can drive is complete without a racing side quest where you race against a demon named Fleetus, who basically wants to compete against Eddie in a dick measuring contest just to prove he's a better driver than him. Beating Fleetus in all his races will reward you the Squealer Sauce, which provides a higher max speed and a quick cooldown for your car. Later in the game, you'll unlock the side missions called Riding the Death Rack, where a headbanger mechanic named Jack the Liftoff shop has Eddie's deuce hooked up to a hydraulic platform named the Death Rack to rain hell from above to oncoming enemies. Jack is also another character voiced by Horvitz in the game, and on top of that, he's even wearing the goggles of Rasputin from Psychonauts, also voiced by Horvitz. Then there's the Summon Fiery Death missions, where Eddie can assist a mortar cannon user named Cage the Cannoneer as he uses the deuce to guide the cannons to target groups of enemies for Cage to shoot at. And in case his name didn't make it obvious enough, yes, Cage the Cannoneer is modeled and voiced by Kyle Gass, longtime best friend of Jack Black and one half of their duo band Tenacious D. Recent controversies about him aside, this was a really cool way to add him into the game and a nice bit of fan service for Tenacious D fans. You've also got the one-shot side missions, such as delivering kegs of beer to a beach party to help out the keeper of the sacred beer tree, yes, beer grows on trees in this world, be a wingman to a headbanger trying to score a girl and preventing the Thunderhog riders from stepping on his toes, and even help a family of bats clear out their cave of wildlife. Funny thing about this bat family, they all resemble and are voiced by Ozzy Osbourne and his family.
Now get fucking lost or I'll bite your fucking head off.
Boy, they really never let Ozzy down on that whole bat thing, did they? There's other forms of collectibles to find throughout the world, such as the Bound Serpents, which for every 10 you free randomly augments your health regeneration, healing bonus for troops, or flight speed. Buried Metal, which can be identified from the Devil Thorns, unlocks more songs for you to listen to while driving the Deuce. Landmark Viewers, where you can see a better perspective on the many landmarks throughout the Brütal land. And of course, there's the Artifacts of Legend, where for everyone you unlock, you get additional lore about the world's true history, narrated by the voice of Count Dooku himself, Corey Burton.
The first ones spent their days feeding from Madronol, the teated tree of drinking. They suckled from her bark a thick nectar that flowed up from her roots, which penetrated the ground so deeply they reached even into the untouched place.
The thought that was put into building this game's world's lore is both crazy and really creative, such as how Ormagon's demise reshaped the world from a dark desert to the living natural world it is today, and how pieces of him shaped the nature of the world. His fire became the sun, his scream became the noise that would eventually become music, and his body became the metal that helped shape the world to future civilizations today. And the sea was made from his blood? Wait, water is Ormagon's blood? Also, the first humans ever created were from a failed attempt by demons trying to make their own force of titans by using a titan's toenail. Not by evolution from when the fish washed up on the shore or when the first humans traveled from another dimension. A toenail. Didn't really expect that. There's also other pieces of history of the world, such as how the Titans ascended to the heavens to become gods after shaping civilization from Ormagon's defeat, the history on how the demons evolved into the Tainted Coil, how the Sea of Black Tears was created, how Eddie's father led the Black Tear Rebellion in addition to its downfall, and how Sikoria went into the future but didn't return out of shame of finding out her kind's fate, but would eventually fall in love with Ragnarok, resulting in the two siring Eddie, but his birth would result in Sikoria's death, leading Ragnarok to raise him without ever telling him of his true heritage. All of this history leads all the way to what we know as the modern world, or what the game calls the Age of Modern Man, and into the events of the game's story. The legends are shown in a set order, so regardless of which artifacts you find throughout the world in any order, it will showcase the legend's lore in its linear order, so you don't have to worry about finding specific artifacts out of order to get the full linear story. Gameplay-wise, being a hack-and-slash action game, you have your standard attack for your enemies, in which you can also move the analog stick in different directions to chop down groups of enemies around you, and by holding the attack button, Eddie can perform a powerful smash attack which can do more damage and also break the enemy's defenses. Your secondary weapon is Eddie's guitar Clementine, acting as a ranged weapon. By repeatedly pushing the designated button, you can attack enemies with lightning, while holding the button will have enemies launch in the air from a geyser of fire that can also cause fire damage. And pushing both the standard and secondary attack buttons at the same time will have Eddie perform the Earthshaker, a crowd control move that can knock back groups of enemies and give you breathing space. Trust me when I say using this to bring down the cathedral in the beginning of the game was nothing short of cathartic. However, the guitar will begin to overheat the more you use it, and when it overheats completely, it can't be used any further until it cools down. You can also mix different attack patterns to generate unique and powerful combos and special moves, some of which you can unlock more of later on in the game, and you can also purchase new moves from the Motor Forge. Sometimes when you're fighting a group of enemies, and usually when you're down to the last one and deliver a finishing blow, the camera angle changes for a moment and goes into slow motion. It's a really cool feature and it can make kills really satisfying. By holding the designated button down, you can also block enemy attacks. A nice thing about this feature is that it can automatically block attacks from all directions, so you don't have to worry about changing your position to defend yourself. You can also lock onto enemies to focus on one enemy at a time and switch between enemies if you wish. You can even perform a dodge roll when locking on. Personally, I rarely use this because I find just continuously attacking enemies around me to be more effective. Then there's an interaction button, which is used for entering your Druid Plow, talking with someone, interacting with something of interest, and more. Speaking of the Druid Plow, you'll be using this as your main source of transportation throughout the game. Although you can travel throughout the world on foot or on one of the many beasts you can mount after stunning them, or even use your allies' vehicles like the Thunderhogs, the Deuce is the best way to travel quickly and can cover ground the best. I will say, although it is fun to drive this car, the controls are really clunky. For one thing, it can be a little hard to control, specifically at high speeds where turning can be very stiff, making it really hard to drive in more narrow areas or places with sharp turns. And yes, I'm aware that's what the handbrake is for, but even when you use the handbrake, the car sometimes slides like it's on ice. The car can also be very floaty. Sometimes when you use a ramp or launch into the air and land, the car can bounce around like a helium-filled balloon and you can easily flip yourself over, having Eddie automatically jump out. That's another thing, it can be really easy for this car to flip over. I'm talking you bump into one small thing or drive into a wall, your car can flip right over or you'll be trying to retain your grounding. It's not as floaty as say the Warthog in Halo, but it comes pretty close. Might as well bring up the Motor Forge next. Motor Forges are scattered throughout the world and they can be distinguished from their appearances, plus they'll be surrounded by devil thorns. Like with the buried metal, you summon the forges with the use of the Relic Razor solo. The Motor Forge acts as the game's shop to purchase upgrades and other weapons at the exchange of fire tributes. It can also be used as a save location, so whenever you load your last checkpoint, you'll spawn at the last forge you went to. You can earn fire tributes in many different ways in the game, from completing missions to finding collectibles. You can even earn tributes from killing an enemy patrol while free roaming. With your Deuce, you can find ramps throughout the world where you can jump through these swarms of lightning plug bugs and earn tributes that way. You need to enter the forge while driving the Deuce because not only does Eddie get some nifty upgrades, but so does the car. Eddie has a variety of upgrades for his axe and guitar, each with their own effects. You can only have one of these upgrades for each equipped at a time, but after you purchase them, you can always switch between them whenever you visit the forge. Examples for the axe include the Razor's Edge, sharpening your blade to provide additional melee damage, the Eternal Fire, which coats your axe in flames and causes fire damage to enemies with each additional hit, the Chain Lightning, which causes lightning bolts to chain on surrounding enemies from the one you're currently attacking and has a really cool lightning effect surrounding the axe, and my personal favorite, Bloodlust, where the more enemies you kill with it, the more the attack damage will increase, but the damage buff will sink over time. It also glows red and drips blood, which I think is an awesome cosmetic effect. With guitar upgrades, you've got strings like the Shredders, which reduces the solo cooldown and cause less guitar heat, the Brawlers increase damage to guitar attacks within melee combos, and the Destroyers cause a major increase in damage compared to the Brawlers, and my personal favorite upgrade, High Voltage, gives a major increase in lightning attacks and damage. With all these different upgrades for these two weapons, you can mix and match between them to find the upgrades that are most comfortable with your playstyle. Want to exclusively focus on damage? Equip the Eternal Fire Axe upgrade and the High Voltage to mix fire and lightning and dish out a shitload of both melee and range damage. You may have to experiment with some of these upgrades a bit to find the one you prefer, but when you do, it really makes the combat in the game way more fun and adds variety to it. Although, since they could only have us equip one upgrade at a time for them, I kinda wish we would be able to switch between these upgrades via a menu or at the very least before the start of a mission. Now, going back and forth to the Forge isn't really an issue. I mean, you can always go back in between missions. It's more that depending on what enemies you face in later missions in the game, you won't know what would be the best upgrades to use beforehand. I mean, you can still dish out plenty of damage, but if you're wanting to know the best effects for the upgrades, you won't know until you're in the mission and you'll have to leave in the middle of it just to drive to the nearest forge and switch to a different setup and then wind up starting your current mission over from the beginning. You can also purchase additional special attacks as well. With a mixture of different button combinations, Eddie can perform different types of special attacks that can provide additional damage to enemies, such as the Roman Candle that causes a fountain of sparks to lift opponents from the ground, the Rock Kick which ends with a finishing attack that kicks and knock back enemies and is also great to use for breaking enemies' blocks, and even the Power Slide where if you use the guitar while running, Eddie will slide with a solo to clear enemies in front of him. My advice, pick the best loadout to start with, then focus the majority of your tribute funds to the special attacks. They can give you an advantage and come in handy later in the game. That way not only do you have the bonus damage effects depending on the upgrade you choose, but you also get the special attacks which can add even more damage. The Druid Plow's upgrades range from a multitude of weapons, armor, and performance upgrades, and of course paint jobs. When you enter the forge for the first time, you are automatically given the Mouth of Metal, which acts as the car's radio to listen to songs while you drive. You have a set of primary and secondary weapons that you can switch between for the Deuce, such as machine guns, missile launchers, a mine dropper, side burners to burn your enemies near your car, and even a subwoofer that can knock away enemies. There's also upgrades to enhance the Deuce's performance, such as extra nitro canisters, increase in maximum speed, and even armor upgrades to enhance the car's durability. I usually like to stick with the second armor upgrade because the max one just looks weird for my car, plus with the right paint job it looks shiny. Speaking of paint jobs, if the cliche black with hot rod flames isn't your taste, then there's more to go around to help make your car look cool. I particularly love the Chrome Vengeance because of how shiny it makes the car look, and the Valkyrie because of the wing decals. There's also this one called the Wagon of Bones, a reference to Grim Fandango. I will say though, I hate the placement of the nitro canisters and squealer sauce being on the back of the Deuce because depending on what paint job you have, it obscures the art you normally see on the back and it's a complete eyesore. Now might be a good time to bring this up. So sometime after the game was released, Double Fine released DLC including the Tears of the Hextodon and the Hammer of Infinite Fate packs. These DLC provide additional customization choices for the Forge, including new weapons for Eddie like the Blade of Ormagodon, which unfortunately doesn't have any unique buffs, but it still looks really cool. You also get a new guitar, the Love Giver, which was originally a bonus for those who pre-ordered the game from GameStop but is now available for everyone as a free DLC. The guitar's design was inspired by Tenacious D and has visages of Jack and Kyle. Also, every time Eddie uses the guitar, he says some unique quotes. The car, of course, gets its own DLC extras. You get new weapons like the Eye of Sorrow, where you can harness the Sea of Black Tears and shoot out its black waters, the Disgorger, which shoots out the blood of the Tainted Coil, causing major damage, and even this one called the Oculus of the Lost, which acts as a radar to find all the collectibles in the world. The DLC provides some new paint jobs to style your car too, with my favorite being the Psychomaster, another obvious reference to Psychonauts. You also get 7 different back patches, and Eddie also gets his own threads. You don't get all of them at the start, but they become available as the story progresses, which is kinda weird for DLC. Regardless, you can rock these new looks for Eddie at any time they become available, and you can even see them in the cutscenes in real time too. While I love using the Mountain Man look in the snowy areas of the mountains at the later half of the game, the Zalia threads are my personal favorite in terms of design, plus I think Eddie looks cool with the Gene Simmons inspired makeup. The black metal threads, it's okay, but it's not my favorite style. Not really a fan of the makeup and the overall design. The DLC also comes with additional achievements for the whole game, including some for the threads, depending on which you use for post-game actions such as making out with Ophelia in the Mountain Man outfit or the black metal threads while mourning Lars with Lita. Also, side note, fuck the Boar Bather achievement. You have to stun a Razorfire boar all the way back in Bladehenge and ride it all the way to the Sea of Black Tears. If you fuck up, which is really easy to do by the way, then you gotta go all the way back to Bladehenge or load your last checkpoint from the last Motorforge you went to in the region and do it all over again. Back when I first played this game, it took me forever to get this achievement. Okay, back to the Forge. Finally, there's the effigies. Giant statues of many of the game's characters which you can use to customize a landmark in Bladehenge called Mount Rockmore. Go crazy and add in whoever you want. It can be your favorite characters, you can make a monument to the 4 leaders of Ironhead, or just randomly pick whatever floats your boat. The DLC adds additional effigies to some of the characters from the game, and even Rasputin too. Hell, even Tim Schafer has his own effigy. I do want to say though, I kinda wish these motive forges could have been used as a type of fast travel mechanic where you could enter a nearby forge and then use the tunnels to travel to any forge on the map. Yeah, the world's not that big and you can get to all the places pretty fast with the Deuce, but with some of the secondary missions you needed to do, it would have made traveling a lot faster. Alright, now that the motive forge is out of the way, I might as well talk about the next best thing for your playthrough. Throughout your journey, you'll come across the tab slabs, which offer guitar solos with different abilities. Bring up the solo menu and select the one you want to use. Then a prompt pops up in the form of a music sheet where you have to push the corresponding buttons when the circle on the line appears around the button as the line goes through the music sheet. It's basically like a Guitar Hero minigame, but using a standard controller. Missing 1 or 2 of them usually won't mess with the effects of the solo, but missing enough will provide no effect of said solo depending on which one you choose. You'll unlock certain solos as you progress through missions in the game, such as the Relic Razor and Battle Cry, but other solos need to be found in order to unlock them. These solos range from summoning the Druid Plow to solos that can damage or kill enemies, to even offering buffs to your troops and to affect your enemies in a way that will provide a disadvantage to them. My favorite solo is the Face Melter. It melts faces.
Now you got face all over your shirt.
There's also the Call of the Wild solo, where depending on which record of the animal you've beaten during the Hunter's side quest, will summon that animal to fight by your side or just use as a mount. If you've beaten the Razorfire Boar record, you can summon them while at the sea, making getting that achievement a lot less tedious. Some of these other solos are crazy as hell, like Bring It On Home, which spawns a flaming zeppelin falling from the sky and causes continual damage around enemies in the affected area after it crashes. Everything about this solo is a direct reference to Led Zeppelin, with the Burning Zeppelin being a reference to their debut album cover, and the name of the solo being the same name of the song from their second album. While some of these solos can be used in free roam and most of the standard missions, a lot of these solos can only be used or are more effective during the stage battle missions. Now, the stage battles work a little differently. While the stage battles still have its elements of hack and slash, it also has elements of real-time strategy. Now, I know what you're thinking. How exactly does RTS work in a game like this? I'll start off with this. So earlier in the story during the second mission, I mentioned that Eddie taught the freed prisoners about hand signals and commands for combat purposes. Well, these commands come into play during missions where you have your troops beside you, but are far more useful in stage battle missions, and they all involve the directional pad, assuming you're using a controller. When you push left on the D-pad, it commands your troops to follow you wherever you go. Pushing down on the D-pad commands your troops to stay in place and defend the area from oncoming enemies. Pushing up on the D-pad commands your troops to charge forward and attack any enemy in sight. And the fourth and final command requires you to hold the designated button to create a beacon of light, and then you push right on the D-pad to command your troops to go towards the beacon. The beacon command, in addition to every other core mechanic for the stage battles, are unlocked in the second stage battle mission and are used onward for later stage battles. You can also hold the interaction button down on one of your troops to command them individually rather than commanding your whole army. Now, just like with any other RTS game, you need troops for your army, and to get troops you need resources. This is where the fans come in. When the battle starts, the fan geysers are blocked off by these fan-devouring leeches. In order to get rid of them, you place a beacon over the leech and command your available troops to attack and get rid of them. You can't damage them or enemy buildings in general, unfortunately, which is a little weird, but I kind of understand since they wanted the troops to be the main use for the objectives. When the fan geyser is green, you go up to it and activate the fan tribute solo, which will build a merch booth around the geyser. Afterwards, you'll start stacking up on fans. In later stage battle missions, each team is automatically provided with at least 2 merch boosts for their side to start off with. The more merch boosts you have built, the more fans you will receive. However, the enemy team can also destroy your merch boosts as well and replace them with their own, which in turn will offer more fans for them, so in order to get those fans back, you'll have to destroy the enemy merch boosts and reclaim your fans. And when I mentioned earlier about using the beacon to command your troops to attack the leeches, that works for all buildings in general, so it's important to make make use of this when trying to reclaim fans and destroy the enemy stage. And obviously, you can't use the fan tribute solo when enemies are around, turning the geyser red, so you'll have to clear any enemies within the geyser before you can claim it. When you obtain enough fans, you can recruit your troops for battle. You bring up the recruit menu and select your troops on the menu, and after you purchase your troops with fans, a meter depicting the troop in progress will appear on the top right corner of the screen, and when it fills up, the troop will spawn from the stage. Infantry units like the Headbangers and Razor Girls take no time to arrive, while the more advanced troops like the Head Splitter and Rock Crusher will take a little more time. You have a limit to how many troops you can have on your side, and troops that are recruited bring out a set number of troop units in loads. For example, recruiting a Headbanger costs 100 fans and brings out a load of 4. Thunderhogs cost 90 fans and bring out a load of 3, and so on. Each infantry unit has different costs of fans in addition to how much of a load they take up, and you can only recruit a maximum of 40 loads of troops. Wait, so if you get a bad selection of troops, would that make it a shitload?
Enough!
Once you reach your max load, you can't recruit any more until your units die off. You also can't recruit troops if their load number exceeds the counter when it's not at its maximum. When the stage battle starts, you start off with your basic infantry, Headbangers, Razorfire Girls, and Thunderhogs. In order to unlock and use more of the troops from Ironhead, you need to purchase the stage upgrade from the recruit menu, which as you can imagine will cost a lot of fans and takes up a lot of time to build. So it's important to start off the match by making it a priority to farm and save up as many fans as possible so you can not only afford stage upgrades, but more troops if need be, while at the same time fighting off against the enemy and protecting your building. And some of the more heavy-handed troops tend to take up quite a bit of the load, so when you're low on troops, it's a good idea to start making the heavy troops the main priority later in the match and use whatever space you have left over for backup infantry. Each of the infantry units specializes in certain abilities that can help give you an edge during battle. The Headbanger works as your basic melee infantry. The Razor Girls work as your basic range infantry, and the Thunderhogs work as support infantry healing nearby allies. Then there are units that are not only stronger, but provide advantages against certain enemy troops. For example, the Head Splitter is a ranged vehicle which is stronger and provides more damage than the Razor Girls. Units like the Fire Baron and Metal Beast with the use of their fire abilities are perfect for destroying groups of infantry. The Bouncers specialize in destroying enemy vehicles, and the Roadies are the best unit to use for destroying enemy buildings. And then you have the Rock Crusher, this giant beast of a tank which is used in the last 2 stage battles in the story, and it works as both a support and ranged assault vehicle and can provide damage buffs for infantry units within range. You can also upgrade certain troops with the cost of fans by pushing the button when hovering over them on the recruit menu. These upgrades not only provide a buff for the troops, but also gives them cool new looks. During the battle, there will be times when notifications appear on the bottom right corner of the screen indicating the status of certain important objectives such as the fan geysers, infantry units, merch boosts, and your stage. These notifications have different colors representing their status, with white usually indicating that something has finished being created like a merch booth or infantry, while red means it's under attack. Just like with any RTS game, it's important to view your surroundings of the battle, and you can do that by activating your wings and taking flight. This can be used not only to get a better view of the battlefield, but also to get to certain parts of the stage quickly, especially where your troops are to support them and to make a quick getaway when things start to get a little too overwhelming. When you're familiar with the battlefield, this is where the strategy part comes in. You need to know where your enemy is coming from and know what troops they have at their disposal so you know what troops you can use against them. It's also important to know which important areas, such as the more vulnerable merch booths, need protecting and which troops to send to protect said merch booths. Obviously, it's not wise to send your entire army to one place. The better option, at least in my opinion, is to send certain weaker troops to one area where there will be a least likely chance for enemies, or at least have weaker standard infantry, while having some of the stronger troops go to another area. And depending on what enemies will be in the area you send them to, you'll need the right troops for the job. Are the enemies sending out a group of standard infantry units? Send out troops like the Fire Barons or Metal Beasts and barbecue those fuckers. Enemies sending in vehicles? Have the Bouncers smash them to bits. And of course, just like any good leader, you jump into the battle with your army to provide support on your end and wipe out the enemy while continuing to strategize. If everything goes right, fight, your team will be able to make it to the enemy stage with you emerging victorious after destroying it. You can also use your own stage during the battle too by interacting with it, and it provides different defensive capabilities, but are usually only useful when the enemy team is close to your stage. You can use the speakers on both sides of the stage, which can knock back and damage enemies that are close enough to the stage. After you fight the Drowning Doom and the Dry Ice Mines, you can unlock the Fog for your stage, which when activated reduces enemy damage when caught in the area of effect. And depending on how much damage your stage takes, you can repair the stage with the cost of fans. You can also use the stage spotlights, which work as a laser by flying to them at the top of the stage. Now, I mentioned earlier that some of the solos can only be used in stage battles or certain missions, but even then, almost every solo can provide a benefit to you regardless. For example, the Battle Cry solo, which gives nearby troops a temporary damage buff. Another support type solo, Light of Dawn, will erase the effects of enemy buffs and debuffs on your troops when performed. It also changes the current weather pattern into a sunlit sky. However, this solo can't be used when the enemy's weather-related solo is also in effect. Then there's the stage battle exclusive solos such as Rally Army, which has all of your current troops on the battlefield come to your location regardless of how far they are from you on the field. Summon Flag places a flag in the spot you perform the solo in, and it will cause newly spawned troops from the stage to automatically travel to where the flag is. Then of course there are also the solos that can provide a huge disadvantage to the enemy team in some way. One of them being the Anvil of Burden, which causes an anvil to be chained on the opposing team's leader, restraining them from flying away and slowing their movement. The other solo, Rock Block, spawns a wall of stones on the enemy's stage, temporarily preventing new units from being made. While it is important to strategize and keep your troops going during the battle, using these solos are super helpful and can really turn the tide of battle. Now, the stage battles, although cool, tend to have their problems. For one thing, a lot of the RTS mechanics for this game that I previously mentioned, although sound simple for the most part, feel really awkward hands-on. There are times where you have to use different button combinations on the controller for multiple things, and certain actions require you to actually be there in person most of the time, such as individually commanding certain troops or claiming a fan geyser, and taking all of that in can make it tedious due to the fact that you can't be at multiple places at once, especially with there being multiple objectives to prioritize. That's the whole point of an RTS game, I'm aware, but keep in mind, this game isn't your usual RTS. The later stage battles in the game get harder, and on higher difficulties, it can be downright impossible to complete most of the time because of the enemy AI and certain troops on the enemy team like I mentioned previously. They can sometimes summon the more advanced troops so quickly that they just overwhelm you without giving you a chance to prepare yourself. Some of them can be so cheap and overpowered too, like the Drowning Doom's damn Reapers that I hate with an absolute passion, and these weird hair spider things that can attack you 50 yards away. I'm not joking, no matter how far you are from these, they can hit you from almost a farther distance than the Razor Girls, and a group of them will make you want to pull your own hair out. And if you think those are bad, try fighting against their heavily armored vehicles that provide nerfs to your troops and slows them down. God, these troops are such bullshit to fight against. The Tainted Coil has some really annoying enemies too, like these stupid dominatrices that shoot these pins at you which you don't even see coming, or these giant dudes with a wrecking ball forehead that they use as a weapon to destroy your buildings and vehicles, and I swear these guys are overpowered as hell. It's not really the fact that these make the stage battles hard, but in combination with some of the awkward controls and mechanics for RTS in this game, it makes it frustrating. And when you're ganged up on enemies, your screen will be flashing red a lot, because as soon as you run into that swarm, there will be no mercy. You'll be holding down the block button 90% of the time until your health recharges. You're honestly better off flying away from the situation. You will be dying a lot, especially on brutal difficulty. Like I said before, despite this game having RTS mechanics, it is very different from your usual RTS. I mean, this game came out in the same year Halo Wars did, but Halo Wars was released months earlier, and before the PC and Xbox One re-release of the Definitive Edition, the game was made exclusively for the Xbox 360 when it originally released. Despite being a traditional RTS, they managed to program Halo Wars so the mechanics can work on a controller, and it worked really well at the time and still does. I know it's probably not the best example because these are two different games with different mechanics, but the point is, when you try to bring RTS to a console using a controller, controller, it can be a gamble, at least it was at the time, because it was really hard to find a proper formula when you try to alternate it from the traditional mechanics that have always been on mouse and keyboard. Personally, using RTS games with a controller always felt weird to me to begin with, and this is coming from someone who used to play a lot of Age of Empires 2 with his dad as a kid, and Star Wars Empire at War during his early teenage years. And I'm not saying RTS games in general don't work with a controller, but at the time when games released for the Xbox 360 like Halo Wars and hell, even Battle for Middle-earth 2 came out, I could imagine it being difficult to implement RTS mechanics on a controller due to the differences in technology, gameplay fundamentals, and mechanics. It just feels more natural to play RTS games on a mouse and keyboard. Brütal Legend, however, is a hybrid game that implements both third-person action-adventure and RTS. And the RTS mechanics are probably one of the things that has aged the worst in this game. Now, I'm not saying this was a bad idea. In fact, I think this was a really creative concept for the time. I just feel like it wasn't executed properly. There's nothing wrong with experimenting with different mechanics to make something new and unique. Lots of games have done so and made innovative titles because of it. But with Brütal Legend, it's a great action game, but as for an RTS, I feel like they could have worked on finding a way to polish it up a little more. Back then, I didn't really pay too much attention to the mechanics for RTS, but as I got older and replayed this game more and more, the tediousness of the RTS mechanics was starting to show. I'm hoping that if this game ever gets a sequel and they decide to keep the RTS elements, that it will be implemented better, because I love the idea of the game being an action-adventure RTS hybrid, but if they find a way to make the RTS mechanics work better and play smoother without the confusing button combinations and tedious control mechanics, then I would be down for it. The game also has a weird way of letting you know when and how you failed a mission. When you start a mission, you are given your objective, but it doesn't tell you what you should prioritize to make the mission a success, and you find out when you fail a mission. Some of the primary objectives are kind of a given, sure, but it's not always prevalent. Like the mission where you get the amps for the roadies. You have to protect the roadies to make sure none of them die or drift too far off from the group, but the game doesn't tell you that or even let you know that a roadie is in danger of death or is too far away, and instead you learn by failing. This is honestly really annoying because there will be times where you think the mission is going well, but then all of a sudden the mission failed screen or cutscene plays out of nowhere and you fail the objective without even realizing it. Also, I want to bring up how you can actually censor the game, and with this game's humor, it just makes it funnier in a sense. So in the beginning of the game, you are given prompts on which you can choose to censor out the swearing and turn off the blood and gore. You can change that back in the settings anytime you want, but just hearing them swear with the censors on make me feel like I'm watching an adult cartoon on network TV.
I told you not to climb on that, you stupid mother f***ing piece of shit. Unless, of course, they start mounting those fuckers on the walls.
And as for the no gore option, you won't see any dismemberment or blood gushing out of enemies, and it kinda turns it into a T-rated game. What's funny is that with the no gore option, in some of the cutscenes when there are obvious moments of dismembered body parts or a head getting chopped off or anything like that that's scripted, there's just a giant censor bar covering it, and it's just so funny to see because it reminds me of something I'd see on an early 2000s Adult Swim cartoon. Ironic considering Adult Swim made a promo of this game with Metalocalypse.
Yeah, but Ghost makes me a sandwich. I'll take a sandwich too.
No way, dude.
Some of the censorship is kind of weird with the no gore, like when Ormagone kills the 3 band members. With the gore on, his scream causes 3 of the members' heads to pop off, but with the gore off, they look like they just pass out. What, did he develop halitosis during his centuries of slumber?
Mentos, the fresh maker.
Okay, I've been holding off on this for a while because I wanted to talk about this near the conclusion, but now I think it's a good time to talk about the soundtrack, which is honestly one of the highlights of this game. While it includes about 20 original tracks made for the game composed by Peter McConnell, who's been in collaboration with Tim Schafer for many years since his work on the soundtracks for Grim Fandango and Psychonauts, the game also includes tracks of around 107 licensed songs by 75 different bands, all of which were very popular in the 90s and early 2000s. I'm talking bands like Rotting Christ, Motorhead, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Def Leppard, Slayer, and even Deathclock. That last band may not mean a lot to music lovers nowadays, but to people like me who grew up around that time, Deathclock was an icon for us. There's nothing like listening to your favorite metal songs playing in the background during a mission as you chop down your enemies. Like in the beginning of the game when you acquire your axe and guitar, Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath plays in the background and is the first song you hear in the game.
So fine, oh mine,
No, that doesn't count. Or in the third mission of the game, Rock of Ages by Def Leppard plays in the background in the second half, and it's such a really good fit for a mission like this. In the cutscene where Ophelia jumps into the Sea of Black Tears, Mr. Crowley by Ozzy Osbourne plays in the background, and some select songs play in the background during the stage battle missions. What's also really cool about the soundtrack is that some of the songs were performed by these artists for the game, such as Lita Ford's Sea of Black Tears, one of the 20 original OSTs for the game. This entire soundtrack was perfect for a game like this. The fact that they managed to acquire the licensing rights for all these songs to be put in the game is just godlike, and I could imagine that this was super difficult to do at the time, because I know for a fact that there are a few artists and studios who are really stingy when it comes to their songs being used. I personally wish we could have gotten songs from artists like AC/DC and Rob Zombie, but what we got in this game was the perfect selection, and you never know, there could be more if the game ever gets a sequel. Brütal Legend also has a multiplayer mode, with the DLC also including additional maps to play on. The multiplayer has players go against each other via stage battles, with the player's choice of teams being Ironhead, the Drowning Doom, and the Tainted Coil. With the latter two teams, they bring their own unique troops and gameplay to the table, with Drowned Ophelia and Diviculus as playable characters for their respective teams. They control the same as Eddie with their own unique animations, so you'll have no problem getting the hang of them. However, when it comes to their solos and troops, that's a totally different story. Both avatars have their own unique solos in addition to a couple of the solos shared from Eddie, such as Summon Flag and Rally Army. Using these solos are so fun for these two because of what they do and how the music sounds. Don't believe me? Listen to Diviculus's fan tribute. And let's not forget one of Ophelia's solos. When it comes to recruiting troops, Ophelia can summon them in the same way as Eddie. Diviculus, on the other hand, is a little different. He can only summon certain troops from the stage, such as the Nun, the Warfather Priest, and the Overblesser, that four-legged thing that Eddie rode on at the beginning. How do you get the other troops, you ask? Well, when the stage troops are summoned, you have to go up to them and summon your infantry via mating. The more advanced the summoning troops are, the more advanced infantry you can get from them, and you can still upgrade them to improve them. Honestly, the Tainted Coil has the most original and unique gameplay style of the stage battles compared to the other two teams, and I love that they did this. In fact, I love how they made all three teams unique in their own way and not just reskins. You play as each team as much as you want and choose which one you're most comfortable with. Not to mention, there's so many different infantry units to double team with, and it's so fun to experiment and interact with them. It just adds a lot more to the gameplay. I'm a little disappointed that Lion White's Hair Metal Militia wasn't playable for multiplayer. I read somewhere that Schafer considered them for DLC, but it sadly never happened. They'd just be a reskin of Ironhead anyway, with the only unique thing about them being how Lion White would play. Oh well, that's what mods are for. Don't expect anyone to be playing this online these days because the servers are a ghost town, but is that really surprising in the year 2025? Thankfully, the game's multiplayer has an option where you can play against an AI-controlled opponent with the option to adjust the AI difficulty, so you can still experience the multiplayer offline. The multiplayer may have the flaws I mentioned previously, but it's still a fun experience regardless. Brütal Legend is definitely a game I would recommend trying out if you haven't already. Whether you're a fan of fantasy games, Double Fine games, or even fans of music, I consider this game a classic and very underrated. I mean, yeah, there's moments that show the game is antiquated, especially the different references to pop culture at the time, and you can especially tell that this game came out in the time it did. And the RTS stage battle segments I consider to be what hasn't aged the best either, but it's still a game that felt original and unique and had an awesome concept. Tim Schafer has been a fan of heavy metal since his youth and had this idea for a game like this since the 90s, and I'm really happy that he made this into a reality. The game felt original, the world and atmosphere was the perfect theme for it, and the amount of pop culture references added in as natural pieces for this world just helped to bring it alive. The game also has some great humor too, with quips from Jack Black, goofy moments from the characters, and even its moments of comic relief. The game's story is unfortunately short. If you don't focus on the side missions and only do them to get enough fire tributes for the upgrades you need, you can pretty much beat it in a day. I feel like with what this game had to offer, its world should be explored more, which is why I think it deserves a sequel. The game has the potential to lead into one based off of the ending cutscene, and when you go into the map, it says that the world is safe, for now. Diviculus's head fell into the sea. He could be resurrected with the sea's powers. anything could be possible. I mean, come on, Psychonauts got its official sequel back in 2021, and fans were waiting years for that, and it was all thanks to Schafer's interest in a crowdfunding campaign along with a lot of other behind-the-scenes nightmares to make it happen. Every year at every gaming conference, whether it's Gamescom, the Xbox Showcase, or hell, even the Game Awards, I always hope to see a teaser for Brütal Legend 2 as one of the announcements on the big screen. The day they make that the final surprise announcement for the conference will be the day the Titan gods of metal will hear our prayers. But alas, even after 16 years, there's still no news. And Tim Schafer made that perfectly clear back at Gamescom.
Jack Black in Brütal Legend or Jack Black in Psychonauts 2?
Oh, well, you could put those together and get Brütal Legend 2, which is not something we're working on.
How long must you make us wait?
Hopefully one day Brütal Legend will get its turn to get a sequel, but I'm not holding my breath at this point. I am excited to see what new IPs they have in the works though. You can get the game on the Xbox 360 and it's also backwards compatible on the Xbox One and Series X/S systems, and thanks to Double Fine's partnership with Microsoft, the game, along with the majority of other games released on PC and Xbox systems, are available on Game Pass. PlayStation players will unfortunately have to dust off their old PS3 to play this because this game hasn't seen a re-release for modern PlayStation systems since its 2009 release. But if you happen to have a PC, you can get it via Steam and GOG. The PC version has its own issues and it's not the best in terms of optimization and also has some weird frame rate and texture issues, but it still works well and is playable. Plus all the DLC I previously mentioned comes with this version, so it's practically the complete edition. Regardless of what version you play, if you decide to do so, I hope you enjoy it like I did. 16 years later and still fun to play.
Man, 16 years. It really doesn't feel that long ago now. Sometimes time really catches up to you without even realizing it. But now that I've finally managed to make this video after putting it on the back burner and holding it back for so many years, I can finally lay it to rest so I can focus on other projects. Also, for those of you who don't know, I am a video editor and creator for Nevermore Niche, a small media outlet focusing on indie games and anything in the pop culture scene. So if you're interested in looking at indie titles or obscure titles, be sure to check out the website and the YouTube channel that we have. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're looking for more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Be sure to set the notification bell to on because YouTube is weird like that. And with that being said, I hope to see you guys again next time. Have a great day.
Thank you.